All right, high school football fans in the North Florida area, welcome to another edition of the Extra Point. I'm Mark Adams, and I'm joined with Andrew Juke, my tag team partner for today. We are 4 quarters online, and we are previewing week number 7. Juke, man, the football season always seems to fly by. You wait for it all year, then it goes by super fast, and I can't believe we're already past the midpoint of the season. A lot of teams have separated themselves, the pretenders from the contenders, as it were. But I'm seeing a lot of interesting matchups still on the schedule. And we've got quite a big one going down on Friday night. Lincoln taking on Leon. And I know a lot of people had their eye on that game. Looking at how Leon has performed this year, I think they've definitely turned a lot of heads, but still a lot of interesting matchups. I'm just going to get your opinion. What has piqued your interest on this week's slate?
I mean, you got to think the top dog, Mark. I think you teased it perfectly well. Of course, you're staying in the city, the capital city district, formerly one of these big district games, right, historically, that have been going on. But of course, two teams before last week, Mark, we almost got them both in undefeated. But of course, you look at Leon 5-0, who's really climbing up in the ranks, having a fantastic season, and Lincoln, who's off to a really hot start, 4-1. The only blemish on Lincoln's schedule is they went up against the number 13 team in the nation last week, Mark. Obviously a tough one in Colquitt. So this is going to be a huge high-profile battle here for a couple of our North Florida squads.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a historic matchup between two teams that literally just a lot of NFL talent that has come out of both schools. Leon, just really the elder statesman, and Lincoln has been absolutely dominant for the past 30 years, really. Going all the way back to the 90s and Coach David Wilson. And then looking at how this rivalry, I remember back in, I think there was in the mid 2000s, somewhere maybe 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. I saw Leon alums flying in for that game. It meant that much to a lot of people. So I would just say it's safe to say that all eyeballs in Tallahassee are going to be on that game. I expect Gene Cox to be at capacity. And Leon's got a lot to prove. You know, there's just so much on the table for them. You're looking at what makes a rivalry is the back and forth, kind of one team grabs a win, the other team kind of goes on a hot streak. But I know Leon's just kind of been on the lopsided end of things, and I know they want to fix that really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been kind of a little brother, big brother complex here lately, Mark. Of course, Lincoln really dominating the rivalry as of late. But of course, in the McGriff era, things and the winds are changing over at Leon. Like you said, coming in hot, undefeated. Of course, Peoples and the rest of the gang over at Leon are looking to get rocking and rolling. And I think a lot of people are having this as kind of the prove me game here for Leon. So depending how they play on this one, this might be a springboard, and I think you'll see a lot of people get on board if they have a really good result. So I think it's great for the city and great for a neutral party like us, Mark, to see such a high-profile matchup as we get into the home stretch of the season. Because now as we enter week 7 of 11 here, we have playoff rankings that are already being thrown out, and we can start having those conversations of things going on after the postseason. And I think, or after the regular season, excuse me, both these two teams are definitely on the candidate list to be playing football here in November.
Absolutely. There's so much that kind of goes into a big matchup like this. Definitely, Leon has the feather in their cap with the big Mosley win earlier in the year. Lincoln, of course, riding high on a lot of different playmakers that they have in that offense and on the defensive side of things. I look for Leon to see if they can get that running game established that they've been kind of known to kind of put teams to bed early. And Lincoln, I think it's just going to be which playmaker steps up. Throw all the records out of the window with this one. It doesn't matter. It's just two rivalries, two big rivals going head to head. And look for that game to definitely be one of the marquee matchups of the year. I'm going to go ahead and move around the area. Osceola takes on Rocky Bayou. Warriors hitting the road. And they'll head out to the to the Panhandle area to take on Rocky Bayou. Jefferson County visits Gadsden County. Jaguars looking to stay strong against a very a very young Jefferson County team, and then Hamilton County takes on Taylor County, and Taylor County still a little bit in battle this season after losing their press box and suffering damage to their stadium. So Bulldogs still trying to salvage the remainder of the season. So coming back into town, another big rivalry, one of the lesser known ones, but NFC taking on FAMU High. This is a pretty good litmus test for the Baby Rattlers under their new head coach, Coach Willie Farrell. And we'll see, every time you have young guys, you just don't want them to quit. You don't want them to check out on the season. So we'll see what fight FAMU High brings to NFC. But we had a chance to see NFC just a week ago. They look pretty strong, pretty sharp. Got lots of playmakers across the field. I think the Baby Rattlers may have their hands full early in this one.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Obviously, like you said, a great rivalry here in the city. Had a lot of close games here back, kind of early 2000s and kind of throughout the years here. One of those, another things, NFC has had their number a lot of times recently. You think about the big three D1 guys that they have looking
Mm-hmm.
forward. JP Pickles, Leon Washington Jr., Joshua Shoots went off last week. And I think they
Mm-hmm.
picked up a couple of local awards, so they'll be big factors. But anytime you have a coaching change, usually it's a little bit of a shot in the arm. So let's see if
Mm-hmm.
the Baby Rattlers can play a little spoiler here. Potential trap game here for NFC. Don't sleep on the Baby Rattlers.
Yeah, FAMU High is very scrappy. I do think that they've got a lot of growing up to do still, but anytime you get new leadership in, you never know what kind of energy that's going to bring into the locker room. So again, I think this game, just for the talent level alone, so many D1 guys have come through both programs. That's worth a good watch on Friday night. Moving on around the area, Godby takes their talents on the road, going down I-10 to take on Pensacola, Washington. That'll be one to keep your eyes on. Franklin County taking on Cottondale. Childs. And this one's kind of interesting. Childs will get a chance to kind of test their wares against Crestview. Look for the Timberwolves to kind of bounce back in that one. And then Florida High takes their talents on the road. They go to Carrollwood, and the Seminoles looking to stay pretty strong. They've only got one loss on the year, and this will be another road test for them. Meanwhile, back on the Capital City side of things, John Paul taking on Wakulla, and this is one that you kind of don't want to turn a blind eye to. War Eagles definitely look like the stronger team in this one. John Paul a little in battle, but they definitely have enough athletes on the field to cause headaches. Tremaine Hughes definitely don't want to sleep on him as a signal caller. And when we get to kind of this point in the schedule, you kind of look for teams to kind of have that bit of degree of separation. And there's so much talent in the area, you don't really want to sleep on any one given team from week to week. Sometimes there are teams that you can throw their record out because they, for lack of a better word, some teams that are down, they just get tired of losing and they absolutely take it to somebody. I look at this one as a team where you don't. If you're Wakulla, you definitely don't want to sleep on John Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's one thing in the area. You never know where teams are, especially when they're coming from different classifications, like a couple of these
Mm-hmm.
teams are. And you never know who's scheduling hard and who's just coming back from injuries. So this is the time that sometimes injuries can set in. I know around this time last year, we had Wakulla, their rock star quarterback, Hayden Cleese, go down. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was unfortunately a big setback for them. He's looking healthy and he's absolutely slinging it. I think he had, 5 touchdowns last week if I remember correctly. Yeah, but John Paul, we've seen some thrillers over the years here from JP2, and they've been able to take down some of these top dogs and these higher classification teams here in the Big Ben. So, like you said, Tremaine Hughes, he's been getting after it for about 3-4 years now as a dual threat quarterback, Mark, and he is very dangerous, very fun to watch.
Absolutely. Other games in the area, Monroe, they will visit Baker County. Also, keep your eye on that one. Monroe still has quite a bit of a tough schedule remaining, and this is another big time opponent for them. Liberty County taking on Weewha Hitchcock, and I got to give credit where credit is due. Liberty knocked off Sneeze last week in a very big upset. Of course, it wouldn't be an upset to the folks out there in Bristol, but I was very surprised to see Liberty County coming out on top against that one. They'll look to keep their winning things going against the Gators this week. Sneeds, they'll look to bounce back against Bluntstown, and this is one of those games in the Panhandle I definitely got my eyes on. Bluntstown, definitely one of the toughest places to play in the state. I just would, just bar none. Nobody really goes in there and doesn't have to give it 110% against the Tigers, but Snead's definitely kind of reeling from that loss from last week. We'll see if they'll be able to bounce back with that running game. Other games around the area that everybody needs to take note in: Santa Fe visit Swanee. That's a little bit of a historic rivalry there. Fort White taking on Lafayette Mayo. And then Mariana had a chance to peek in on them at when they took on Gabi last week. They'll be taking on Walton, and Walton looks absolutely formidable. So I think the Bulldogs will have their hands full with that one, taking on the Braves. And then out in Panama City Beach, in the Panama City Beach area, Mosley will be taking on Navarre. All right, Jupe, any of these games out in the Panhandle you got your eyes on? Anything piques your interest?
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, you talk about the Mariana Walton game. That's going to be a really exciting one. Mariana coming in last week undefeated to the capital city. Of course, had a little bit of a tough go against Godby, but I really like Amari Clemens. He had 3 big rushing touchdowns last week for Mariana. But Walton also undefeated. So I think the two teams, like we talked about for Leon and Lincoln, I think they're coming in with a combined record of 9-1, if I'm correct here, Mark,
Mm-hmm.
and we look down for it. Obviously, against West Florida Tech, Walton had a monster game last week. You think about Cornelius McKenzie, who put up a $160 and 4 touchdowns, man. So we can see a lot of excitement. The ground game is going to be huge for these two squads, an opportunity to jump forward here in excitement. And of course, here as we head towards to the season's finale of the regular season, big playoff point get opportunities with the records both of these two teams have.
Yeah, absolutely. Walton's one of those teams that, every few years or so, they put together an absolute dynamite squad. They're just one of those county schools that really likes to cultivate and develop their talent. So you see what you're seeing now is a lot of guys that have been playing together for a long time. Very, I won't say a senior heavy roster, but definitely got guys with plenty of experience that understand what it's like to be able to kind of work together. And now it seems like they're hitting their stride here in 2023. They look like one of the teams to beat in the suburban classification. So it'll be very interesting keeping my eye on what's happening with Walton. I look for them to match up with the team from the capital city here somewhere along the lines in the playoffs a little bit later on, and when we get to some November football. Moving on around the area, Navarre will be hosting Mosley. The Dolphins will look to kind of keep things on the winning side as they take on the Raiders. Destin will be hosting Bozeman, and then Choctaw will be taking on another good team out there in Walton County, South Walton. That Walton South Walton game was very telling a couple of weeks ago. Really had a lot of talented guys. I saw a great defensive matchup, bit of a chess match between the coaches. Walton came out victorious, but South Walton definitely proved themselves to be one of the more dominant teams in the area. I think they're going on their 3rd year with 8 or more wins consecutively in the season. So this will be a good test for them as they're playing one of the bigger schools out there in the Panhandle. And I definitely like what the Seahawks have done and put together this season. Their coach has absolutely game planned himself into creating a very good budding program. And South Walton is one of the younger teams in the area, but they've been year in and year out for the past 4 or 5 seasons one of those teams that you have to keep your eye on. So that'll be a great matchup going on out in the Panhandle. Holmes County, man, they look like one of the teams to beat in the rural classification. I like what the Blue Devils have done. And for a while it was them and Chipley, but I think Holmes County it just might have just a teeny tiny bit of an edge. They'll to be taking on Jay, and man, I really like to see Holmes County late in December. Maybe they might be one of those teams in Bragg for the 1A, competing for the 1A championship.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've really got the run game going out there in Holmes County. Of course, took on Vernon this past week, and I think they rushed for over 360 and 6 touchdowns, Mark. And, of course, anytime you can rush for that much, the big boys are moving in the trenches, and the running backs are just taking care of business. They are absolutely dangerous. It kind of reminds you, for a little more of a local feel for those who may be more familiar, kind of Sneeds in their heyday. Run heavy, run, run, run some more. Mark,
Yeah.
but when they're getting it rolling, it is absolute freight train, and we saw it last week with the 6 touchdowns and over 350 on the ground.
Yeah, Holmes County definitely has they've got one formula, but as an offensive lineman, just those guys got to be walking around school on campus feeling absolutely 10 foot tall, knowing that we are able to put up this much yardage on the ground. So shout out to Holmes County. Look for them to be one of those teams making a deep run in the playoffs. Rounding out the week number 7 schedule, Port St. Joe takes on Vernon, and then Arnold will be visiting Panama City Rutherford. Uh, I think Rutherford looking for that first dub on the year. I'm not sure, but yeah, Rams definitely looking for that first dub on the year. They will host Arnold. Got several teams that are going to be taking the week off. McClay, Rickards, Madison County, Chipley, Bay, Graceville, and North Bay Haven all going to take some much needed rest. And that will do it for the week number 7 preview. Jude, man, thanks for joining us. We look to have you back on as we start rounding out the latter part of the season. And we want everybody to go ahead and check out some of these games. Show up in person, buy your $6 ticket, and go out and support your local high school football in the area. That'll do it for week number 7, the preview. This has been the Extra Point. We are 4 Quarters Online, and we'll catch everybody next week.